So when we first meet John Calvin, we find him at the University of Paris. He's 12 years old. We sometimes make a big deal about that he was this brilliant savant, but there was actually a law at the time that you had to be at least 9 to enter the University of Paris. So there's Calvin, 12 years old at the University of Paris, studying law. Now, the particular college where he was at the University of Paris is fascinating because this college was tasked with evaluating the teachings of this radical monk over in Germany, Martin Luther, this heretical monk. And what's fascinating to me about this is there's no indication that Calvin was even paying attention to this as a student at law. It seems like his interest is in the humanities and he wants to be a scholar. But God gets a hold of Calvin. In fact, as he's going to write in the preface to his Psalms commentary, that God subdued his heart and made it in a teachable frame. And once Calvin is converted, he turns all that energy, all of that training towards theology. Now, at this time in France, the Reformation had not made inroads. The Roman Catholicism of the day was firmly entrenched. He did not have a Frederick the Wise in Germany like Luther did. And so Calvin needed to flee France. The heat was turned up on him. He wanted to get to Strasbourg. There the Reformation was firmly established. There was a university there, a church there. Martin Bucer, who actually was converted through listening to Luther in 1518, was there. And Calvin wanted to go and study under him. But to get there, he had to go through Geneva. And he intended to just stay overnight in Geneva. But he got shanghaied, literally, by his friend, William Farel. And that's a fascinating story in itself. And that overnight stay turns into almost a 2-year stay. But what's interesting about this is the city where Calvin did not want to go ends up kicking him out. And so Calvin's first pastoral stay did not end victoriously. He gets summoned by the church council, and he's told that he has 48 hours to flee the city. And he finally gets what he wanted. He gets to go to Strasbourg. And he goes to Strasbourg, and there he's preaching to a refugee congregation of about 500 French who are there in the city of Strasbourg. There he starts writing his first commentary, and there he opens up an academy at Strasbourg to teach theology. Meanwhile, back in Geneva, the Roman Catholics had descended upon the city in the absence of Calvin, and the city is about to turn and go back to Catholicism. They send a letter to Calvin begging him to come back. Calvin says, there is no place on earth I'd rather not be than Geneva. But he senses God's call on his life, and so he goes back to Geneva. He ends up staying there. It becomes his adopted city. He not only leads the church there, but as one biographer of Calvin said, while he lived in Geneva, his heart was turned towards France. And he spent much of his energy training pastors. They'd come from France, study at Geneva. They'd be funded by the citizens of Geneva and sent back into France. And over the time, there was a network of thousands of underground churches founded by Calvin's work there at Geneva. And in the 1550s, Calvin's Geneva sent missionaries all the way to the shores of Brazil. This was a man whose life was devoted to the gospel. And as he poured his life into the pastoral ministry, the city, Geneva itself, was also devoted to the gospel. And that's the life of John Calvin.